Okay, welcome to Rate My Gadget, and I'll show you how to pack up a K2 Explorer and how to do it properly. So let's get started. So first things first, you want to make sure it's on grass and turn it on to it so you can see the bottom. Take the fin out, so that's the easiest way. Then put it back onto its bottom, and as you can see it's all inflated with the seats in. And what you want to do is remove the seats. Remove the seats, turn it back onto its back, and then what you're doing is you're draining the air out of compartment 4 and 5. So squeeze the valves, squeeze all the air out of it as you can. These are relatively, it will be quick. So as you can see, once you do that, squeeze it, air will come out of it. So take these ones down first. Okay, and now what you're trying to do with the boat is trying to get it as dry as possible. So if it's a sunny day, leave it out if you can, so it dries off. Turn it upside down, try and drain as much water out as you can. But one thing you do want to do is where you've got the valve on the back. Oh, this is just showing you how to take the fin off. So push that button there, slide it out, and that's how you take the fin off. So do that before you put it onto the flat grass, and do make sure you do this on grass as well. But what you want to do is that drain point there, make sure that's open, because that will let an awful lot of water out. So tip it back onto its bum, lift it up in the air and try and drain as much water out. Then what you do is I get my wetsuit, because a wetsuit's a bit like a chamois leather, it's quite absorbent. Use that to dry the boat now on the inside. So you're trying to get right into that crevice where the big inflatable sides are, see there, and onto the bottom. So you're trying to dry it as much as possible. If it means you need to leave it out in the sun, leave it out in the sun, but you're trying to dry it so that you're happy to the point in which you think, do you know what, it's pretty dry. Then take the valve out at number 1. So you need to put your finger in, and you need to get this as flat as possible, because this will stop you wrapping it up effectively. So usually it helps if you actually sit in it, obviously someone who's dry, so you don't just put all wet water back into the boat again. But that bottom compartment, number 1, that you sit on, that's the one that's really key, to get that as flat as possible. And the reason it's key is because that will stop it rolling. So as you can see, I've got a lovely assistant here who's helping me push down that compartment. And what you'll do later on is when you're rolling it from that end, you'll roll it from that end towards the other end of the boat, towards the end where the camera's facing. So you squeeze all the air out. So try and get someone to sit on it, squeeze the air out. Once you're happy with that, then you want to do the side compartments 2 and 3. So you'll have 2 kind of levers on it. It's the one that's the backmost one. So there's a little cog at the backmost one. Turn it anti-clockwise, and then eventually it will give. Keep turning it, and then once it's open, it just goes. It will just pop, and then the air will come rushing out of it. As you can see into that hole. So that's what you want to see. Again, same on the other side. It's the furthest back knob that you want to be turning. Again, turn it. Eventually it will start hissing at you, and then keep going until it's fully off. And then once it's fully off, those sides will be deflated. Go over it once more to make sure it is dry. And if you need to, lift it up from both ends so that you're trying to drain the water out as much. Like I said, if you do leave it out in the sun, leave it out while it's inflated if you can. Now, if you go to the end where that valve is, you might still find some water in there. Again, try and dry that out. So you want to go to the both ends, make sure it's dried out. Get your wetsuit right into those edges again. So you're drying it out as much as possible, and really, you want to get it as dry as possible. If it isn't dry, and if it's a wet day, take it back out when you get home, because you want it dry, because as soon as you wrap it away, any moisture in there. Now you're wrapping it, as I said, from one end. So you're wrapping it towards the end where the valves are, and as you're doing that, try and wipe the bottom of any moisture, because you're trying to get as much wet out. And as you're rolling it, you can't see it very well, you put your hand in that valve and you put your knees on it. So actually put your weight on it now that it's rolled up, and put your finger in that valve, because that's squeezing all of the air out. I'm sorry I'm not showing it very well here, but you're just trying to squeeze it out so it's in this condition now. So you've rolled it up towards the yellow nose, okay? Roll it back out again, make sure it's dry. do it several times so you're squeezing all the air out of it. Once you're happy that you squeeze the air out of it and it's relatively dry, now you're ready to put it in the bag. So in this condition, you want to almost roll it over on itself and then roll it into the bag like this. Okay. Now don't zip the bag up yet, but you're trying to push it down into the bag so it's folding like a U. So you're folding it over on itself, so one side is folding into the other. You've still got to put the chairs in and everything. Put it in the bag, but you do have to be careful. The bag is really, really flimsy, and you'll see in a minute we actually ripped the bag on this. Paddles and all the paraphernalia, the longer you can leave those out, the better. The paddles, push the black button down, pull the sections apart. If you can leave them out, then great, make it as dry as possible. Again, try and kind of get the water out of the inner tubes if there is any, and then just sit those on top. Okay. Now again, you can see on the bag here, like I said earlier, we ripped it. So you do have to try and squeeze the bag as much as possible, and before trying to zip it up, don't force the fabric round. You're pushing it all in, so it's got some kind of give, if you like. So once you're at this position, you're ready now. So you've squeezed it, you've knelt on it, you've got it in. Now look, you can see it easily will zip up, so don't try and force it. If you try and force it, the fabric is really weak, it will just rip. So before you do zip it up, the only last thing you need to do is put the pump. So the pump itself, the black hose comes away quite easily. Those two parts, again, just sit on the top. I would tie the two handles together before you zip it up, because you don't want to force the zip. The zip is really, really weak. And that is it. So I hope it's helped.